right, well, welcome back to our weekly chat where we talk to the leaders in sports, business and entertainment. And I've finally settled on a name, Boz, that you'd be quite happy with. And there is a little bit of a story behind it. It's called Fork in the Road. We've even got a logo. Have a look at that. It's all about the fork in the road.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Corey. It's a real pleasure to be here.
No, we've really enjoyed, as I said, talking to the leaders in sports, business and entertainment. And what better than, when talking to someone like yourself, played for Aston Villa, played for my beloved Manchester United, played for Chelsea, played for Australia, even kicked a goal for Australia, and by the way. So there's not many people that can say that, and kills it on Fox Sports. So, mate, how have you been dealing with the pandemic and the isolation? How have you been dealing with it? You got a not a bad view in the background with Woolloomooloo in the background.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the introduction. It was very, very, very kind of you. Look, so far so good with the lockdown. Obviously, here in New South Wales, things have loosened up, especially in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The government's done a fantastic job all over, in my opinion, and especially here. So the kids I've got 2 kids, one is 8, one is 3. The 8-year-old's been back to school for 2 weeks, and the 3-year-old started to go back last week to daycare just for 2 days a week. And other than that, like I said, touch wood, everything has been okay. Settled into a routine very, very early on. I've got a wonderful fiance who keeps me in check. And also, as you know, and as a lot of people know, I've been doing, normally we do during the season match day Saturday, but I've been doing chat day Saturday, where I've been getting a lot of special guests on from around the world, ex-teammates and managers. And I've got a very special guest as well this week, who's an ex-president of one of the biggest clubs in football. And that's kept me very, very busy, because I've been doing things like this, like we're doing with you. And also, bearing in mind the A-League will be starting within a month's time, I've started to incorporate things from the local game. So we've been having theme days. One theme day was about managers, where we got Sydney FC's manager, Stephen Corica, and Western United's manager, Mark Bosnich. We've also had the Women's World Cup joint pick for 2023. We had James Johnson and Sarah Walsh. Sarah Walsh is an ex-Matilda legend, and James Johnson is obviously the CEO of Australian football, of the FFA. And also we've had an Agents Day. So we've had part 1 with Paddy Dominguez and Artem Lilovic, part 2 this week with Lou Sticker and John Gamora will be on before the other interview. And we plan to have a few more of those type of things, Corey, very, very similar to what we're doing. But I just want people, not only just football people, but just people out in Australia, just to realise the amount of, everyone has this sort of catchword about stakeholders, but the amount of people that it's so important to, and you know that from your AFL days, it's the players, of course, are right up there. The fans are up there. And that's another theme day I'd like to have, is with the fans, because we hear so many opinions from everyone. But really the most important thing, in my opinion, is always to hear from the fans, because, they make the game tick. And we've seen that so much in isolation, and with leagues coming back all around the world, that it's great to have leagues back. We know that, but without the fans, the sport is half what it normally is.
I didn't have this as a question, Boz, but now that you've actually rattled off all the things that you're actually working on and promoting the game so great in Australia, in a way, you've nearly become like the next Johnny Warren. You've nearly taken the torch, and it's fantastic, mate. Yeah. We're hearing all these great stories, and it's fantastic what you're doing for the game.
Thank you so much. I must say that's a wonderful compliment, but there's only one Johnny Warren, and there'll only ever be one Johnny Warren. But right, yeah. Look, I'm just doing my best, because I'm very, very fortunate during lockdown to still have this forum. I did the Matt Shervington show as well on a Monday night, and I just thought it's important, because, like I said, during lockdown, people are always, we're looking for things, and we saw the rugby league started at the end of May. We're seeing the AFL start like 4 or 5 days ago. Rugby union will be up and running soon, and football was interrupted as well. And even though we were the last to finish, there's still a good portion in terms of the last final games and the final series to go. So I just thought it was important that, like I said, and it's a good opportunity for people to hear from all these things. Everyone's got their own point of view of where they come from, and in the future, like I said, up until the start, I'd like to get as well club CEOs club chairman if they're willing to come on. And I think that's important because I don't know about you, Corey, but like I said, as when you play, you just concentrate on yourself and rightly so, and making sure everything's okay. But it's slowly but surely, as you go throughout your career, you realise that it takes so much effort and so many people to make up for that sport to be what it is, on a Saturday or whatever it is. Yep.
And what are the things that you've taken out of all the people that you've interviewed? What are the things that you've actually learnt yourself by, hearing from so many different people?
Well, I've had a variety of people. Dwight York's been on, Robbie Fowler's been on, Gus Poyet, Sven-Goran Eriksson, Ali McCoy, Peter Schmeichel, who was a great inspiration and hero of mine when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And that's been this special guest. And, the one thing that sort of, come through with everything is number one, the amount of hard work they all put in to what they did and what made them successful. I think that's a very, very important thing for anyone to realise.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I would say that the humility that they all show, the willingness still to learn, even though all of them have achieved magnificent things. And also the different perspectives in terms of, because what I do is I just zero in on 3 topics. And when I say I really zero in, so say, for example, as you, Corey, I'd say, right, your time, here at, wherever it may be, this specific game, how important was it, and all of them. I mean, even, Sven-Goran Eriksson, spoke about when he was Lazio manager and, how the year before they just missed out on the title and, it was heartbreaking. And then the following year, the same situation arose. Yeah. And, he was, saying, yeah, we had, everyone has fear, you get butterflies and all that, but, we just went out and done exactly the same thing. Peter Schmeichel the same. And I know how much you love Manchester United. And, I spoke about some pivotal games during that treble season and, especially the one against Arsenal in the FA Cup replay.
Yeah.
And I said, I thought that was one of the keys. And, he spoke about it. And Dwight York, the same, Ali McCoy, the same, Gus Poyet, Robbie, all of them. There are this specific types of moments in games where they just plowed on. A lot of those times, those games and the situations weren't looking the best. Lazio, funny enough, Sven was saying they had to win their last game and hope for a good result from Juventus. So it was in Juventus' hands. And he said, ironically, where Juventus were playing against Perugia on that last game, their game had been postponed by 80 minutes. So he said, we'd finished the game, and because of rain in Perugia, Juventus' game had been postponed, so we all went to the TV. And he goes, lo and behold, Juventus got beat by Perugia, who no one had give Perugia any chance. But it just goes to show that regardless of the situation, and I think that goes for everyone, you just keep going. You keep going, and things will turn around if you keep doing the right things.
Yeah. And then look, going way back when, we haven't got the benefit of the internet now and the technology and social media, but how the hell did Manchester United discover a kid from Sydney, only a 15-year-old kid, and say, listen, we want you to come and trial with Man United? Because even I think back to that time. Now, our only way of finding out about the Premier League was obviously the weekly show, or there might have even been the soccer magazine, like the soccer paper, whatever. It was like that British Weekly, I think it was. Yeah. So we didn't really get to find out. And obviously the talent here probably didn't get exposed. So how the hell did they find out about Mark Bosnich?
Well, I was very, very fortunate. There was a chap here in Australia who used to run a lot of stuff for New South Wales football called Alan Best. And funny enough, he was very good friends with the then youth team manager, Malcolm Cook at Liverpool, would you believe? So in 1987, we'd gone on a family holiday to Croatia. What was then 1987 was called Yugoslavia. And at the end of that holiday, I just got one sister, so my father and my mother and I and my sister had gone to London, England, and Alan Best had arranged a 3-day trial with Liverpool. So my dad and I went on a bus one early morning from from London. It was only spring, but I was like, wow, it's still cold, yeah. And we've gone up north to Liverpool for 3 days, and we did 3 days of trialing, and sort of everything I touched went to gold. And Kennedy Dalglish at the time was the manager, and he said, would you stay? And my dad said, look, let him finish school, because back then, as you know, back in 1987, you had the year 10. Yeah. Then you had, if you wanted to stay on, you could go to year 11, year 12 and do your HSC. And my dad said he's only got 2 months left of year 10. So let him go home, finish school, and he can come back at the start of next season, which would be the 1988 season. And in that interim period, so that was September 1987, the late Eddie Thompson, who was Australian manager, and he managed several clubs over here, he knew Sir Alex Ferguson very well. They not only played together, I think they'd actually either gone to school together, they knew each other very well. So he heard about the story. He rang up Sir Alex. Sir Alex got me over in March. I spent 2 weeks in Manchester. And there was always that thing about the work permit at that time. And basically at the end of it, he locked me in his room and said, look, you're signing for us. So I thought he was, he was sort of much more confident about getting the work permit and much more determined. So July 1988, I started my experience at Manchester United. It seems like yesterday, but it wasn't.
And what's it like? I think we all know about the end result that happened some 30 years later and the trophies that ensued for Man United. But as a 15, 16-year-old kid, how intimidating is it to basically meet Sir Alex? Or is it nearly the opposite? Because he was so good with the with the youth teams, it seems like he did take a real keen interest in developing that youth, as by Beckham, Scholes, and all these guys come through.
Well, as you know from being a Manchester United supporter, they had a wonderful tradition even before that, promoting their young players. The late Sir Matt Busby, who was the last man before Sir Alex to win the European Cup way back in 1968, had that famous side, then they nicknamed the Busby Babe. So many good young players until it was decimated by that horrible plane crash in Munich. And Sir Alex really wanted to revive a lot of these traditions, and one of them mainly being the promotion of youth players. Apparently, at the time when he first arrived, he obviously got his coaching staff in and all the scouts and everyone and said, look, listen, I don't want just the best youngsters from the greater Manchester area. I don't want just the best youngsters from England. I want the best youngsters from around the world. So this was a thing that he laid down in terms of, just like a farmer would lay down seeds for 18 months' time for his crop to grow. And it proved wonderful successful. I was fortunate to benefit from it. Manchester United benefited so much with the class of 1992, who were a couple of years below me. But then all of a sudden, like I said, during that time when I was first there from 88 to 91, you saw youngsters come from everywhere, from Sweden, from Bermuda, from all around the country and from all around the world. And it was a really exciting time for myself. And also, in terms of, being, you spoke about, we used to sort of, keep up to date over here with Match of the Day. If you remember, ABC, it'd be on Friday night or Saturday. Everyone used to usually watch it on Friday night or Saturday lunchtime. And to see all those players that you watch on TV up close, that was, I wouldn't say intimidating, but it was a bit freaky, And but that was great. And all of a sudden, you're thinking, well, look how things can happen. If you do the right things. You're watching somebody on TV now. All of a sudden, you're face to face with them in the same dressing room.
What would you give advice for anyone? Because that's nearly like the extreme. I know I had to do it when you were playing AFL football, but what advice do you give anyone out there, even from a work point of view or a general life point of view, that all of a sudden you're thrust into this situation that you never thought you'd be capable of, but in the end, you've just got to find a way. So obviously it's the extreme when you go to like Manchester United, you're seeing all the guys that you idolised as a kid. So how did you put that to the side and say, right, I've actually got a job to do here?
For me, it was like, it was exactly what you said. It's great. And you always, sorry, I just put this a bit.
Yeah.
What's that? You always be, off the field or out of work, you always be humble. You always be nice to everybody. You treat people how you expect to be treated back. That's without going. But then once you go out to do your work, whatever that may be, you focus on what you do. And to understand as well that, there will be times when things don't go particularly well. So if I think back to them, I think, well, maybe at those certain moments when I was speaking about before, maybe if I didn't perform as well, would have turned out different. And you think to yourself, well, it would have if you just maybe stopped, or if you made a mistake, and you just keep going. And if you really set your mind to something, if you really, really focus in on your mind, so let's take it from an AFL perspective. Well, you know what? Today I am going to score 6 goals. All right? I'm really going to focus my mind in on scoring 6 goals. Okay? Now that day you might not get the 6 goals, but I guarantee you'll score 3 or 4 minimum. Yeah, and it's very, very underestimated. We always talk about measurement of fitness. We see, especially now with strength and conditioning and all that coming in, people can measure your VO2 max. They can measure your 40-minute sprint speed. They can measure, your upper body strength, maybe, with the amount of bench presses you can do, pull-ups and that. But it's very, very difficult to measure the mind. And the mind is really the most important thing. That will slowly but surely come into play. I'm quite confident of that, especially with what we've seen with everything else.
And do you think, I don't know you've touched on it, but is that what you would say is what really what separates the average players from the really good players is really that mindset and probably that self-belief? Yeah,
most definitely. I mean, look, the self-belief is something that grows, and it's not something that's, entirely natural. Because a lot of people, like I said, they like to see results for themselves before they start believing. And then also you've got, other people around, as you know, in the team scenario, if they think somebody's a little bit too cocky, they might turn around and go, calm down a little bit. And that can also blow up in your face sometimes. So that self-belief comes from within. I mean, I had an assistant manager once, Jim Barron at Aston Villa, who used to always say to me, confident, not casual. Because there is a fine line between all of those. Sometimes you can be too confident and it leads into complacency and then you can get punished. But I think the most important thing out of that is that, like I said, that will come, that self-belief, but that hunger and that determination to zero in, I think is, like I said to you, that's invaluable. That is really, and you talk about what separates. I would say there's a lot of very, very good players. You're talking about the best of the best. You're talking about arguably, one of the greatest sporting competitions in the world. So you're talking about the best of the best from not just a few countries, but from all around the world. So they're all very good, but then there's the ones who are very, very good. And I think, like I said to you, and you see it day in, day out, you see a lot of players who are very equal with their physical side attributes, even with the skill attributes. But then you think to yourself, well, then what's separating those, the best of the best? And the only thing you can say is up here.
Yeah. And then look, in your wildest dreams, when you're a young kid from Australia and you can visualise a hell of a lot of things, but winning those you won 2 League Cups, was it, with Aston Villa?
2 League Cups, yeah. Well, when I came back then in 1992, it was right at the beginning to Aston Villa. And ironically, the manager who brought me back was Ron Atkinson, who was obviously the manager at Manchester United before Sir Alex Ferguson.
You think he did that on purpose, Boz, just to stick it up Sir Alex a little bit?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, like I said, at that time, he just needed a goalkeeper, and he'd seen me perform quite a few times for Manchester United reserves. And there was one specific game he reminded me of when we played against Sheffield Wednesday, when he was manager at Sheffield Wednesday, and I was at Manchester United. And this is another thing I always say to youngsters, always think that somebody's watching and somebody's listening. And that's the best way to go about everything. And had a wonderful 7 years. And to win those 2 League Cups was a dream come true for me, because one of the original inspirations for me, we talked about Match of the Day and so forth. But as you know, here in Australia, I mean, maybe it's not as big as it was back then, but, every May, on a cold evening in May, we'd all stay up for the FA Cup final. And it would be around, I think at that time, it's around it's usually 12 o'clock at night, midnight, around there.
12 o'clock.
Yeah, something like that. And of course, Craig Johnson, another Australian, winning the double for Liverpool way back in 85, 86, and scoring a goal and seeing him walk around with the cup at Wembley, that really triggered off in my mind that that's exactly what I wanted to do. And to do that, with the League Cup, okay, it wasn't the FA Cup, it was the League Cup. And in 1994, and especially against Manchester United, it was very, very special indeed. And Manchester United were actually going for another treble that year. And they ended up winning the FA Cup and against Chelsea, and they won the league, and deservedly so. And the League Cup, we won at Aston Villa. So that was a really great day. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. You know, and you know, Corey, from your experience of AFL, you know, there are certain things that happen during your career that no one can take away from you. And I wish I could press a button now and do that walk back around Wembley, because there's no better feeling when that referee blows that final whistle and you go and obviously congratulate the opposition. And you know, you're always trying to win with dignity. I think it's very, very important that that basically, sorry, somebody called again once there. That basically you savor those moments, because they're few and far between. You know, I used to always, I mean, you know yourself, as I'm trying to give up, I'll say it to everybody, but I enjoy my cigars, not the big ones, it's the small ones. But I used to always, because people used to always ask me, don't you smoke the big ones? I said, only when I win a major trophy. Well, I was only able to smoke 4 during my whole career, which is probably better for my health.
It's probably way better for you. And is it a realisation moment when that final whistle goes at Wembley, that in your head, I did notice, Boz, that you were very quick. Yeah. You were right up behind the captain. You were going to make sure that you were second in line to be in the photo.
A lot of people say that, but in football generally, you'll see when people walk out as well. Unless people have got certain superstitions, but in football generally, the captain always goes up first, and then it's the goalkeeper, and then it should be then it should go numerically. But I'd always go behind the captain because I was the goalkeeper. That's all. There are others, who would like to go last. There was one for that, but if you just see generally it's exactly the same as when you walk out of the tunnel as well. Usually it's the goalkeeper that's second. So when you walk out the tunnel at Wembley, the 2 managers lead you off. So that day, obviously, on one side there was Sir Alex, on the other side was Ron Atkinson. Then the 2 captains. I know Kevin Richardson was our captain that day for Manchester United. I'm trying to think who would have been captain that day. I think it would have been Steve Bruce.
Steve Bruce, I think. I'm
quite certain. And then funny enough, Peter Schmeichel was suspended for that day. He'd been sent off 2 weeks earlier. Against Charlton. So it was Les Sealy, who unfortunately has passed away, and it was me. And the ironic thing again is that during my first spell at Manchester United between 88 and 91, Les Sealy had come on loan and famously played in that FA Cup replay against Crystal Palace, and he was a great help to me at the time. So again, it was one of those moments you think, wow, here's somebody who I was training with, 3 or 4 years ago and got on like a house on fire with, and now I'm walking out alongside of him at Wembley. So that was a bit, that's when you've got to sort of steady yourself and say, okay, all right, play the game, not the occasion, and then you can have a chat and think about all these things afterwards, because you can imagine if you're thinking about that for the first 15 minutes, especially in a position like a goalkeeper, you can make a mistake that will stay with you for the rest of your life, just like success does.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the pressure of playing in the Premier League, I've always wondered, and especially when you're in goal, and as you said, one mistake that can nearly define your career. How did you cope back then? What was your way of getting away from it, or what was your routine away from football? And the second part is, now that you know what you know now, how would you better cope?
I cope absolutely fine. I don't mean that in a way that people told them. Of course, you feel the pressure. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, the famous, the late Customato, famous trainer of Floyd Patterson and Mike Tyson, used to always recite that story about the only difference between the coward and the hero is that they both feel the same thing. It's what the hero does and what the coward doesn't do during that time. So we all feel the same way. Of course, you get butterflies. For me personally, I used to try to work that for me, and use that as a sort of an imaginary stick to say, well, this is pressure to take yourself to a different level. Yeah. In terms of coping off the pitch and getting away from it, I mean, like I said, and it was really drummed into me by that famous youth team manager at Manchester United when I was a kid, the late Eric Harrison, who was absolutely fantastic. I learned so much as well. That he was from the north of England, and obviously in the north of England, especially post-Second World War, there was some really hard times for the people, And he used to always say, pressure is when you've got 3 children, and you have to support them, and you work down a mine, and all of a sudden, the head of the mining company says there's no more work for you. That's real pressure. So you always kept that in the back of the mind to say this is how lucky you are. Of course, there is, like I said to you, pressure, because especially as a goalkeeper, at any play, you don't want to make a mistake. And it's to see that, probably like you did before games, people used to deal with pressure in different ways. And some people were actually physically sick as a physical reaction to the nerves before the game. So you saw that in all types of ways. But just like everything, you try to get used to it. You know, the first 5 to 10 games in front of so many people, you have that, there's a little bit extra, but slowly but surely you just go into a way. And in terms of coping off the pitch, I wouldn't do anything different at all. I mean, from a regular week, you normally play 3 games a week anyway. And I love what I did. So, you know, occasionally I may have went to play golf with Dwight York, or even though I'm not a good golfer, and probably after 9 holes I'd end up being the caddy anyway because I'd run out of balls. For me, you know, just having a day off was a you know, good thing for me, because I didn't like to have too many days off. So I used to like to make them very, very special, even if I just went in to get a massage or just to do a little jog around the park or see how everything is. Because I still do to an extent, but I lived, eat and breathe football. I truly loved it. So, and I truly felt I was blessed from God and very lucky to do what I did. And I never wanted to take it for granted, ever, because I always believe if you take things for granted long enough, it will be taken away from you.
And then what about for Australia? Is it a bit of a regret that you probably, I know that I read a bit of a quote that you said you may have regretted playing too much club football or putting club football first ahead of Australia, or where did you see it?
I never regretted putting club football first, because that was my bread and butter. And as it was explained quite clearly to me by every manager I had, by every club that I had, we are the ones who pay your wages. So that was completely understandable. And I can understand, because, you know, they're paying you big money to perform. I said to you before, it's not average players. You're talking about the average over there is very good. Then there's the best, then there's the best of the best. So there's no average players or whatever. It really is not. You got a choice from all around the world. And as they made it plain and simple to me, you know, if you lose your place, you know, to go and play, if it's a non-World Cup qualifier, if it's a World Cup qualifier, generally they're very good. But the biggest thing for me, not a regret, but it was a little bit, you know, looking back now, is that there was no international calendar back then. So, i.e., so now when it's an international game, the whole world pretty much stops.
Yeah.
I know the A-League did that last year here in Australia, but then the years before they kept playing on. But pretty much the whole world stops. So you can go and play for your national team. Well, back then, you know, that wasn't the case. You know, a great example was the start of the 1993-94 season. Australia had a World Cup qualifier against Canada on the same day as the opening day of the Premier League. So, I mean, that was just, you know, and I tried my everything to do a compromise to say, look, can I just play the second leg? You've got other good goalkeepers. No disrespect to Canada. I said, look, you know, you should be okay against Canada. I'll be fine for the second leg, because that was an international break. And then there was a stubbornness from the other side. And then when I saw them being stubborn, I thought I'd be stubborn, and then I ended up getting banned because they didn't come down. So, like I said, the only real regret is that at that time that there wasn't just an international break. It would have been easy then. You're like, okay, you play on a Saturday or Sunday, like that. Like there was certain times, but it wasn't uniform. And it was like everyone, you know, says, see you later, and we'll see you next week, you know, and you go off to wherever you go off and play a game, and then you come back. Obviously, it's much easier. You know, let's say the situation is reversed. Just say the Premier League was here in Australia, and just say Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales weren't states, they were countries, and all those countries played their league, and at the end of a month, those countries, so Western Australia played against Victoria in the qualifiers for the next World Cup. So it's only 4 hours. So that's the same situation for Europe. So the vast majority of boys, especially back then, were all from Europe. It's changing. It's starting to change a little bit now. So, you know, if you played for France, for example, and, you know, you had a European qualifier that week against even Luxembourg in Paris, it was only an hour, like Sydney to Melbourne, you know, and you're back. A little bit different for us, but still it would have made a huge difference that there was no conflict of you know, games playing at the same time. But I guess that's a tribute as well to the fact that a lot of players from all around the world, you know, we've seen Park Ji-sung, we've seen some great players, you know, Okazaki, that from Japan, Shinji Kagawa, you know, from players from down here like Harry Kewell, So that's a tribute, I think, to all those players, so many great African players from South America, from everywhere, that all those players have come to the fore and have come to the Premier League. And then obviously, FIFA through UEFA have realised that, we can't keep doing this. This is wrong, because these players have worked so hard, and just because they go and be successful and play for their country, they're being punished. So kudos to FIFA for doing that.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, heading back to Manchester United, you wouldn't have got to see, you're nearly the ideal person to talk to, because when you first went there in '89, at that point, Man United had won pretty much nothing. And then by the time you go back there in 1999, what was the difference in the place that you're able to see from a culture and an environment point of view that you went, you know what, this is why this place was successful for the last 10 years?
Yeah, I don't think there was a great difference. I just think that all those roots that I told you before about, those seeds that Sir Alex had planted all those years ago, had now started to grow, and there were ones coming up against it. So I saw it when I first went there, because he was installing that culture, especially the young boys.
Yeah.
It was now pretty much the finished product. So it was everything that you thought it would be. And obviously success gives you a different outlook on things. He used to always recite the story about, isn't it great when you're on top of the mountain, you can see how clear and how still everything is, and I'd rather stay here than be back down there. So that's completely, understandable. Something just come up, Corey. Corey, something to me. I don't know that one.
I was trying to say okay.
No, it said okay. No, I said Corey. It said Corey said okay. Anyway, so it was great. It was also great to see those young boys. Who I remember as young boys, who just come off the back of winning, one of the greatest club competitions in the world, the European Cup, in such dramatic fashion. So it was great. It was really good. It was a real eye-opener to me that, if you ever wanted to be a manager or of anything at all, that to lay down those seeds and to keep watering them and to nourish them, what obviously Sir Alex did, is so important to long-term success, because, 1988, and I come back in, 11 years later, and you see, obviously things take time, but you just see, and it was just a completely different feeling about the place. Because, when I was first there, like I said, it was still quite difficult. There were some difficult times, and there wasn't that aura that it was there back in '99. Back in 1999, when I went back there, it was like every game you went out, it was like you felt like it was going to win. Even though I wasn't playing in '88 to '91, I played 3 games in the game, but there was always that feeling that we could get beat here today, or this, that, the other. That feeling having completely dissipated. But it was, because the game of football is always, anything can happen. But the opposite feelings, the opposite part of the graph of going like that in terms of, feelings that they're going to win every game, that was truly there. It was truly there. And it was great to see. It was great to see with your own eyes, especially after sort of being there pretty much what was the beginning.
And Boz, it's not too far away. It's back on this week. It won't be in front of fans, and it won't be in front of crowds. And unfortunately, the team on top is going to win the title for the first time in 30 years. But what about we've got Spurs and Man United on Friday morning. I suppose the Spurs team, it's allowed them to recoup and get a lot of their players back. And probably on the flip side, even with Man United getting Pogba back and maybe that partnership with Bruno Fernandes.
I think that's going to be a fantastic partnership. Now, I was asked about this on Sky Sports News UK, ironically, exactly sort of what you asked.
Yeah.
And I know that it's been a very divisive subject, but I'm actually on the side of keeping Pogba. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I think he's one of the best players in the world. Okay. And a lot of people say, yeah, but he doesn't do that enough. Okay. Everyone always strives to be consistent, but the bottom line is when he does do it, and that is attainable, he's one of the best players in the world. And, he's obviously had a lot of non-stop football. He had this injury. He's going to come back from this injury. And the other thing as well, if you're on the other side to what I am, if you're on the camp of like, I think we should get rid of him. Well, I'll ask you this question: for who and for how much? You're talking about the most expensive player in the world, and you're talking about somebody who, like I said, if you're going to get rid of, you've got to replace him. And just say you replace him with someone who you think will be better, it's still going to take you time. And as we know, for it, being Manchester United supporters, time is not of the essence, so to speak. It's been a long time since that feeling I just spoke about under Sir Alex has been around the club. I believe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will get back to that position. But in these days, and you've got kids, I've got kids. Time and patience is not really a thing that's in great supply, is it? So,
no.
I think that him, and coupled with Fernandes, I think was a great signing. Them two playing together, I mean, you're talking about if they start, getting a partnership. Ironically, in terms of my match day Saturday, I'm going to be speaking to someone without giving anyone away, who also was in charge of arguably the two best midfielders in the world very, very recently. And to get that chemistry together is not easy, but once it does, the results will be staggering, I'm telling you now. But coming back to the Premier League restart, so I think these early games are going to be vital. Even say for another club I support, the moment Aston Villa playing against Sheffield United, that's their catch-up game. I think it's going to be vital to getting off to a good start. Now, Tottenham and Manchester United are on a great run before the break. I think it's vital that both teams get off to a good start. And I know there will be no fans in the stadium, but boy, will there be fans watching around the world.
Yeah, it's great that we're actually getting sport back. And Ange, my producer now, this could go anyway, Boz, because I got Paige. I know she's a very passionate Leeds United fan. Now, Ange, how are we going, mate?
Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Paige.
We're good.
Gee, two Man United fans, that's a bit awkward for me, isn't it?
That's okay.
I might have to have a bath after this. Look, Bozza, lots of talk around what's happening, particularly at the bottom of the table. Was a huge logjam of teams there sort of trying to claw their way out of the drop zone. And then, conversely, in the championship, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams all vying for that promotion. How do you see that playing out, particularly at the bottom of the table in the PL?
Well, it's a very good question. I first and foremost, to make you happy, I know you have a big smile thing. I believe Leeds and West Brom will get promoted. So there you go. So Leeds, both clubs, in my opinion, belong in the Premier League, especially Leeds. And like I said, we had some great battles, not only Aston Villa but Manchester United. They're a great club, great tradition. They deserve to be. The third place will be up for grabs, like it always is. It's a playoff scenario. It's something that we're familiar with here in Australia, and they're not as familiar with over there. But what it does is, as we know over here with our playoff systems for all our sports, on the day anything can happen. You can have a team that's been so much better than someone throughout the whole year, but all of a sudden on that day something can happen. Bottom of the Premier League, I think, look, Norwich will find it very difficult to stay up. Obviously Watford. But then there's another massive logjam, and this is why I said it's very, very important. I mean, one of my old clubs who I ideally love to stay up is Aston Villa. They're down there at the moment, but they have got a game in hand, and that's the opening game against Sheffield United. So I think it's very important that I think if they can win that they should be okay. But you have to say there's teams going all the way up, maybe even to Brighton, who are all in the mix there, and they've got to be very, very careful. The other little, you could say, wild card thrown in because of this is because the amount of games in such a short period. That's going to be very interesting. You tend to think that the teams with bigger squads would be better off because they'll be able to, swap their players and rotate them without as much disruption as other teams. But you never quite know, But there's, you are going to have to use your squad because I spoke to Corey before during the interview about playing 3 times a week. Well, sometimes they could be playing 4 times a week. So everyone's going to have to be ready. And also, like I said, the other wild card, Corey mentioned before, no fans. That's going to be very interesting. We've seen in the Bundesliga already a lot of away results that we wouldn't see normally, and that's obviously because of home advantage. Home advantage really means when you've got those people behind you because it is a massive influence. So that's how I see it. But you can be rest assured Leeds will be promoted to the Premier League.
That's music to my ears.
Well, I know that it puts a very big smile on Paige's face. I do follow her on social media, and she is a very, very passionate Leeds United fan. So
yeah,
it'll make you happy, Paige. But thanks for the question, Paige. Very much appreciate it. We've got 2 to go, Bozza. Final 2.
That's all right.
Yeah, the one we've been building to, as I alluded to at the start. We'll go to the fork in the road. Go to the fork in the road question. So, where is the fork in the road moment for Mark Bosnich? Where was it that you could have gone either way? So, positive or hopefully, I mean, it's turned into a positive story that you've gone the right way.
Oh, look, listen, I've had forks in the road regularly. I have them still. And that's not from a personal perspective, but I think that's just in general in life. I think every day you have little forks in the road. I think it just really comes back to your being.
Yeah.
By nature, you know, as you know me quite well. You know I'm a good person, but you also know that I will fight my corner. And unfortunately, I was presented with a situation when I was at Chelsea where I was left with no choice but to fight my corner. And I did. And I'm here now talking to you because of that. It's a situation that had nothing to do with football, and it's one that I'll elaborate on probably in the future if I feel like that way. But it was just an unfortunate situation. It was like you know, when they say a perfect storm, you know, like when clouds are coming and this is coming and that's exactly what it was. But, you know, like I said to you before, you've got to keep going. And I was very, very lucky again that back in 2007, Australia had a game in London against Nigeria, and Graham Arnold was assistant coach at that time, and he sent down a gentleman by the name of Phil Wolanski and John Bolty from the FFA delegation, and they come and said, "Would you, you know, considering coming back to Australia?" And I said, "What do you want me back there for? By the sounds of things, everything's going great." I said, "I've got more luggage than the Queen. What do you want me back there?" They said, "Oh no." They said, "Come down, come down." I said, "Okay." So I come down. There was a FIFA conference. I think it was at that time they were going for the World Cup and this, that, and the other. And Central Coast said, "Look, our goalkeeper Danny Vukovic had been sent off in the grand final, which is come and play 6 games." And that was, I think, by 2008, I think then. And I said, "All right, I'll come and play 6 games." And then I come and play 6 games, and then I was due to go back to America to do a reality TV program. Funny enough, which my mum and dad didn't want me to do. But I said, "Look, I've given my word, and I've got a visa, you know, this, that, and the other." And just before I went, my little cousin is a dentist in Neutral Bay here in Sydney. I went to see him to get my teeth checked and this, that, and the other. And he just come out and said, "Oh, you're not going to believe this." He goes, "But I know you have to leave in 3 days, but you've got an abscess. You can't go. It's actually dangerous. If you go in a plane, it's actually, you know, there could be real problems for you." So I had to, you know, get his reply to sort of profusely apologise to the American TV company. And, you know, I think that, I'm not sure, I think they paid already half the money. So I gave that back straight away. I said, "Sorry." And I said, "I've got this abscess and it won't be right," and this, that, and the other. Anyway, a week later when I went back to see him, he was like, "You're not going to believe this, but the abscess is gone." So I was like, "Okay." So I kind of think like that was like mum and dad saying they didn't really want me to go. And then Fox Sports Australia was so good to me. And they said, "You know, we've got the Premier League, would you work on it?" I said, "I'd love to." So I've been working on that ever since. Obviously, Fox Sports lost the Premier League rights a couple of years ago, but I stayed with the A-League and with Fox Sports to work on all sports. And very, very fortunate because, you know, like I said, that's why I thank the Lord every day because, you know, I did something I loved for so long. And then, you know, unfortunately, it was taken away from me from circumstances, like I said, that were really beyond my control. But now, for the last 12 years, I'm talking about something that I love. So I'm very, very fortunate. That's how I see myself.
Yeah, I know. And it is, as much as with the greatest respect to Optus, I wouldn't mind getting you and the great Robbie Slater back together because you're sorely missed. I think on behalf of all football fans in Australia, we miss you too on the TV talking about the Premier League.
Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate that.
And look, on behalf of me, you know how much I love talking about football, and you notice I'm calling it football. I'm not calling it soccer.
I don't mind. I really don't mind, Corey. Honestly, I'm not one of those, what do you call them, language warriors. I really don't mind. Yeah, I really don't mind if somebody calls it football or soccer because, as we know, down here in Australia, football can mean several codes. And that was the same originally back in the UK when they actually coined the term soccer because football meant a lot of codes. So I actually don't mind. It's no problem for me.
Yeah, I know. But look, regardless, it's been brilliant to sit down with you, mate. I know that we could probably end up talking for a couple of hours. We really only touched the surface with Manchester United, and thank God everything's back to normal this week. Let's hope for a great Manchester United win. A big thank you, mate, for sitting down and taking out the time Big thanks to, I've got a sponsor that helps pay for this, and they do the production in National Make Good Solutions. Yep. And the podcast will be available, or if you're watching us on YouTube, you're seeing fine young specimens in Bosnich and myself on the screen. But if you want to check it out, you check out the podcast, you go to the various platforms and it'll be there. But a big thank you, mate. And as I said, let's hope for a big Man United win and a big finish to the Premier League season.
Well, thank you, Corey. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I don't know if anyone heard at the start of this interview, I actually asked Corey, I said, how long is it going to be? He said, probably about 45 minutes. I went, what do you mean 45? I said, half an hour. I said, well, I'm looking at my watch, it's been an hour, and it feels like it's only been 5 minutes. So thanks to everybody. Thank you, Corey. Thanks to Ange for producing it and everyone. I really appreciate it. And everybody stay safe. And slowly but surely, we'll be back to normal. Take care.
Thanks, mate.